Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times' flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. According to world-renowned Hungarian philosopher of system science and two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, we have a sound in the background. Has it gone? Good. Okay. According to world-renowned Hungarian philosopher of system science and two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Dr. Ervin Laszlo, there are two paths opening up for us and our world today. One is a path up to healing and evolution. The other is a path down to crisis and chaos. As we look at the many challenges currently facing us, war, aggression, climate change, hatred and division, it's clear that inaction is no longer an option. So what is the solution? What power do we as individuals have? Dr. Casale is one of the co-founders with Ervin Laszlo, Deepak Chopra and other luminaries of the World Upshift Forum, an award-winning European civil rights activist and former member of Parliament, who joins me now to share the many ways in which the world Upshift Movement and Forum can help us individually and collectively take action to bring about positive and sustainable change in the world, fueled by something that we all have access to, the power of love. Roger Casale, welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, Sandie. Lovely to be with you and with your audience.
So, Roger, tell us first, what is the World Upshift Movement?
So the World Upshift movement, I think it's really a kind of a vibration. It's a message which resonates around the world. And I think you put your finger on it when you talked about the power of love. And what we're really saying is the deep change that the world needs to come from within each and every one of us. And so we just ask people to reflect for a moment and to look inwards. And you talked a moment ago about, what power do we have as individuals? That's such a great question at a time when we face so many crises in the world, when everything seems to be going rapidly in the wrong direction. It can feel very overwhelming, depressing, but actually, we have the answers within ourselves. And so we need to look inside ourselves and remember we are conscious human beings, and that love is a very powerful mobilizing force of our behavior and others. And so that's a message. The World Upshift Movement is putting that message out there and then seeing what comes back. And what's coming back are that individuals and organizations with whom that message resonates are getting in touch, and that allows us to join up the dots. But the movement itself is not something that you can it's not really a thing. It's more a vibration. And you might think of the vibration as going out from a lighthouse. In this time of very rapid change in the world and perhaps overwhelming crises and challenges that we face, we want to be a point of reference and put out that message of love and of light, and to say, don't despair. Actually, we have the answer within ourselves if only we can find a way to unlock that potential.
Back in the 60s, the famous song Dionne Warwick, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And, we all know that and we all feel it. But actually being able to act on that is very difficult for many people because they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know, they don't have a compass, and they feel that on their own, they just don't have enough power. So what you're proposing is a way that we can all come together and create, our own communities and create our own ways of being active in this arena.
Yes, I think we are proposing that. That's beautifully expressed, if I may say so. And but I just want to say also in response to what you've just said that we don't. That is the critical question, the one you just asked me. We all want that. It's true in the 1960s and it's true today, and it will be true in the future. Just because people talk about it in the 1960s doesn't mean to say it's true today. But of course, the key question is, how do we do that? How do we mobilize the power of love? And I have to say, you and your listeners, we don't have the answer to that question, but we know a lot of people who do in the particular context, in particular initiatives. I know we're going to talk about these. And I think to answer your, and we want to put those in touch with each other and see how we can catalyze an upshift in consciousness by putting those different initiatives together. But first, we need to gravitate around, in this case, the World Upshift Movement, but it doesn't have to be the World Upshift Movement. They're gravitating around other organizations as well. We're just one of many beautiful networks that are there. The more the merrier. What's important is, what are we actually contributing? What's the value? What's the difference we're making? And I think the difference we can make is by bringing those organizations together. They can learn from each other and they can do things together, and we can actually show that in these particular ways and in these particular contexts, these organizations and these people have found a way to transform the world through love. And just on that point, if I may, Sandie, where you said about people being on their own, Because we said, didn't we, at the start of this conversation, that we look inside ourselves and perhaps we can find in each and every one of us, I believe we can actually, I think it's part of being human. You know, we're not machines, we're human beings. If you want to call it soul spirituality, it's fine. If you want to call it consciousness, the thing is, we all know that we exist and we have a heart, we have a soul, if you want to call it that, we have an inner life. That's what I prefer to refer to it as. And we can go to that place in ourselves. And I think we all kind of know that that's where really deep change comes from in our personal lives, don't we? And what we're saying is that social change can come from there as well. And we find that love within us. We find something in us. Go and have a look inside yourself and find out what's there. And you might, and and bring the good out in yourself and the things that you want to offer people of goodwill. But there's other thing that we will find, I think, is that actually as humanity, we are all truly connected. And I've come to this late in life, and this has been the greatest revelation to me and the greatest joy for being engaged in the Upshift movement, is discovering this sense of connection with other human beings around the world, that we're part of humanity. It's a great feeling to feel that connection. It feels good. It feels joyful. It is wonderful and inspiring and motivating. But, you know, what I sense is it's much more than just a feeling. It's actually something real. You know, I can reach out and touch my cup of tea and hold it in my hand, and I can feel the cup. But the cup is real. And the connection between you and me, Sandie, and everybody in humanity, all of us, is real. So we look inside ourselves, we find the power of love in ourselves, or whatever we're going to find that. But we start by looking at ourselves. We will also find that we're connected. And I think these are resources for humanity. So we're not on our own, and the power of love is within ourselves. We need to unlock it and remember that we are deeply connected and go from there.
Okay, I want to get a little bit personal now. You said that you came to this late in life. I mean, you were a member of Parliament, quite a different kind of arena than the one you're in now. What was it for you that tipped you into that place where you wanted to do something different and have blossomed because of that?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I mean, yes, I was a member of Parliament. I was a Labour member of Parliament from 1997 to 2005. So I worked with people your listeners will remember well, like Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. And what we wanted to do at that time was we wanted to make Britain better. Of course we did. And the way we were going to do that was by investing in health and education, putting money there, okay, but also using the power of government to try and change people's behavior by incentivizing their different kinds of behavior, perhaps through the tax system or something like that. So rewarding good behavior, like investing in certain kinds of industries, and punishing other behaviors, like putting a higher tax on cigarettes, this kind of thing. And what I learned from that was that it doesn't really work. You can't really change people's behavior top down. If you want to change people's attitude and behavior, it has to come bottom up. And I learned that lesson again when I came out of Parliament, and I was, as you very kindly mentioned, civil rights activist and so on. And we go out there and we fight for what we want. We say, give us this. And it's really good that we do that. And all kinds of great initiatives. Some of your listeners will be involved with them, particularly for climate change and other things. But, you know, let's be frank. Things are not, despite our best efforts, things are not getting better, are they? We're not winning these battles. We're not winning them in politics, and we're not winning them in civil society. Now, I don't want to say politics doesn't matter, because I know that politics does matter, and there are a lot of good people in politics, the same as civil society. I'm just saying we're not across this. The depth of the world, that the change that the world needs to come from a much deeper place. And that's what I see going on in many of the organizations that are gravitating around the Upshift movement that we're going to talk about. But the challenge that I see is that I think that's where change can come from, but somehow it's not that energy from the world within, if we put it that way, or from spirituality, if you want to describe it that way, is not reading across into the worlds that I come from, politics, civil society, and I've worked in business as well. And I think that's what needs to happen. And I hope that we can help to bridge those different worlds in the Upshift movement, because the energy and the love and the consciousness that is in the there in the work of the organizations that are coming together in the Upshift movement, and in so many other ways as well, and areas as well, that is desperately needed. So I think it was my awareness of that, of the limitations of politics and civil society, and my own limitations, that brought me into conversation with Ervin, and actually Ervin Laszlo. And I think that's where we really got on, from his lifetime of writing books about spirituality and about systems change and so on, and my experience, my experience in politics and civil society. Very different perspectives, and yet we both have those same insights.
So what role do you play in the organisation?
Well, Ervin asked me to try to get the Upshift movement up and running. And I said to him, well, you can't build a movement. A movement has to emerge. And so what we could do is create a framework that would catalyse that and facilitate that. And that's what we've been doing. And that's called the World Upshift Forum. And so so that is what is happening. And it's a very long-term project. We're not trying to be the biggest and the best. We're not trying to go as fast as we can to be able to say, oh, look what we've done here, what we've done there. We are really just putting the very limited infrastructure in place to allow this process of catalyzing Upshift to emerge, and going step by step. So as more individuals and organizations come towards us, so the movement evolves. And I perhaps I had some understanding from my background in civil society and in politics, but the most important lessons I learned were not about how to do things. I didn't have to do some things. Actually, the most important lessons I learned were about the limitations of that and what doesn't work, and that's what I'm trying to bring to this new movement.
So most people, when organizations are created, they come with roles, and they come with their objectives and their aims, and they come with, charters and all kinds of things. It sounds to me that what you've done is you've laid something out on the table and said, hey, come play with us and see what you can create.
Exactly.
Right?
We created a website, and so your viewers can go to the website. It's called worldupshift.org, and they can sign up there. There's no cost as a member, or I'm called a member, but they can sign up and get information from us, and they can fill in a survey if they want to, and they can say, look, this is what we think needs to happen, or this is the project we're working on. So the World Upshift Forum, really, the World Upshift Movement, is a place of gifts. It's a place where people can bring the gift of their goodwill and their vision of what a better world could be. And our message is, this really, really matters. Don't sit there at home thinking, I'm only one, because we are many. And don't sit there at home thinking, what's coming out of my heart doesn't matter, it's just what I think or feel. Actually, that's exactly where we want to start. And we had a lovely meeting once in Rome, one of our founding meetings, where we had a lovely group of people together, and we do have luminaries involved, as you said before. But so we had these people in the room, and we went round, you know how you do it at these meetings, one by one, everybody introducing themselves and talking about the wonderful work they were doing. And the last person we got to just said, well, I really don't know, I think it's called Mike, he said, I really don't know how to introduce myself. There are all these beautiful people in the room doing all these amazing projects in education, in social care, and I'm just a human being. And I leapt out of my chair, I gave him a big hug, and I said, that's exactly what we're looking for. So if you're listening to this and you're a human being, please come and join the World Upshift.
You qualify. So tell me a bit more about the Upshift Forum.
Well, we do need, as I said, the World Upshift movement is not really a thing. It's a message that resonates and vibrates. Like, think of it like it's a lighthouse putting a message out across the world, standing between the day and the night, the land and the sea, on that border area, and saying, let's come together and mobilize the power of love and upshift our human consciousness. That's the movement. It's just that message. But the forum really is where we have created a small organization that can actually get work done directly. Now, the most important work that's going on in the World Upshift movement is not being done by World Upshift Forum. It's being done by all our partner organizations. But within this World Upshift Forum, we actually are going to we're creating a platform that can be accessed through the website. Some of your viewers may know about this platform called Mighty Networks, which is a very powerful platform that lends itself very well to this kind of initiative. And on that platform, we're going to develop different areas of work. And the kinds of areas of work that we want to focus on will be human consciousness. Yeah, it will be on education. We work very closely with the Ananda movement, the Yogananda movement worldwide, in Europe, in California, and in India. Education for life. One of the very important people in the movement, my co-founder, actually my partner, Maria Antinori, is a special educational needs teacher, but also very interested in education for life. Communities of light, something else that's come out of the Ananda movement, but then also we work with initiatives that are doing sort of trying to improve local environment, trying to work with plastic, very, very practical things. But we will open up different areas of work on this platform. And the World Upshift Forum is there to really bring people together so they can work together on projects. And what we hope to be able to do is to create some new projects. So think of the World Upshift Forum, if you like, as an incubator for new projects where people can come together and we can hold the space where those new groups and individuals and organizations can come together and new things can emerge. And once a year, we hold the forum in a place called Lerici in Italy, which is near between Pisa and La Spezia, which your viewers may or may not know that area of Italy, which is sort of central Italy on the coast. But it's a beautiful place, but it's also a place where the poet Shelley died. And another one of our board members, Lady Mohini Kent Noon, who's based in India and also the UK part of the year, she said, "Why are you taking to a place to celebrate somebody's life?" Well, I think, but actually, you know, Shelley was very interested in, as you probably know, panpsychism and spirituality, but he was also very interested in the world that we live in today and how to make it better. And so we think that he would have resonated. The soul of Shelley will be resonating with the World Upshift Movement. And we think that's a lovely location to actually come back to that idea of the resonance and so on. And I mentioned the lighthouse, and I think the next step, if your viewers would like to get more involved and they come on the website and they sign up, we talk about going from the lighthouse to the harbour. And the harbour is really where we hold meetings of our members online, where people can connect, online forums, members forums, and so on. And we think of that as the harbour. And so all the time we have this idea of water in the background. Water as a carrier of meaning, of energy, is deeply, deeply spiritual in itself. We call we'll talk more about it. We call our members hummingbirds, because the hummingbird belongs to the new world, and the hummingbird does the best she can. And the hummingbird brings a drop of water to put out the fire. And it comes back to what I was saying before. Please don't, if you're watching this, please don't underestimate the contribution that you can make just by holding the still, soft voice of peace in your heart, just by taking care of yourself and others around you. And, you know, don't think that that doesn't matter. That matters so much. In fact, it's probably, if we can mobilize that to scale, what's going to save us.
So I was on your website earlier and I saw some wonderful articles, reports of things that people are doing. I think one of the things that is lacking right now for many people is inspiration. Yeah. And I think those articles offer that kind of inspiration, don't they?
Well, I've certainly been incredibly inspired by the people I've had the privilege to come across and meet through the World Upshift Movement, who, as I say, are coming towards us. It's not that we're sort of hand-picking them and saying, oh, by the way, will you come? They're finding us, and they're bringing the gift of their presence and their vision and their work to share it with others. And so that is something, I've never been involved in something like that before. You know, normally it's the other way around, much more transactional, and this is really a place of gifts. And the other thing that people do, the other thing they bring to the platform is they bring their questions. And as I said, we're a place of gifts and we're a place of questions. We don't, you know, some organizations say, oh, well, we've got the answer. Well, we haven't got the answer, but we are a place where we can have the conversation. So bring your interest, your curiosity, be inspired, yeah. but also, we have some great leaders and luminous and inspiring people there, and we hope you will be inspired by them as we have been. It's also a bottom-up organisation, and most importantly, so again, don't underestimate how inspiring the love you're going to find in your heart today is going to be.
So if I came and said, I've always had this thought about doing, I don't know, something in my community, but I'm new to my community, I don't know anyone, how would I start? What do I need? Is that the kind of questions that you could answer and help me develop that?
Yes. So, yes. Well, I hope that we would have, we could signpost places and put you in touch with people and organisation that might have what you're looking for. And then if that isn't the case, you could come back and say, well, that wasn't quite such a good fit. Can you help me to go somewhere else? But we're not going to look at you and say, oh, you're one of the, we're not going to do that to you. We're going to say, oh, that's really interesting. That's what we're going to say. And you might be interested, you might be curious to speak to these people. And then we're going to put you in touch with them. And then you'll come back and you might say, oh, yeah, that was really good. So let me give you a practical example. I live in Italy and I spend a lot of time in Rome. And there's an organisation in Rome called Retake Rome, young people who are part of the Upshift movement. And what they do, it's actually started by an American law professor who's here in Rome. Excuse me. And what they do is at the weekends, young people go out and they do cleanup activities in local neighborhoods. And they take down the graffiti and they pick up the rubbish and they plant the streets. And initially people in the community say, well, what are you doing that for? That's the council's job. But they do it with such joy, with such love. And they do it from the heart, because there are other kinds of initiatives like this, which are great, but which is about, oh, you should do this or you should do that. Should be good. No, they're not doing it for that reason. They're just doing it because they think, well, I love where I live. And this is an opportunity to do something for my local community. And then they connect with other people in the community. And the interesting thing is that when they leave a neighborhood again, something has changed in that neighborhood. Okay, so it's not just you, because you might think, oh, well, they'll come and clean it all up and then people will be making it dirty again. No, that doesn't happen. The community behavior changes. That love, that energy that's coming from the heart. Yeah, so that's why we say heart, head, hands. It's coming from the heart. It's a really smart thing to do. And then they really literally get their hands dirty. They go out there and then things change. So you might find somebody from the community watering the plants themselves or not throwing the litter on the floor and so on. So they leave a lasting legacy. So, and I think this is what we're talking about with Upshift. It's not just about doing good work, although good work is desperately needed. And that's wonderful people that do that. We're trying to get that added value of making people stop and think, oh, actually, hang on a minute. Yeah, this is, and that's where the paradigm shift, if you want to use a word like that, that's where that's going to come from. It's by that aha moment where people think, actually, maybe I shouldn't drop my litter on the floor without having to tell them what to do. You see, we live in a time where people don't want to be told what to do. They don't even want to be asked what to do. And boy, do I know that from my time in politics and civil society. But if we can get to a situation where people understand for themselves what it is that they want to do, and that's where a change in attitude and behavior is going to come from. That's where it's going to emerge from. And so that's why that inspiration is necessary. But it could be an inspiration from a leader, but it could be an inspiration from a young teenager who wakes up on a Saturday morning and goes up and clears the graffiti off around the corner.
Well, how does the local council, the local authorities in Rome, how do they respond to what these people are doing?
It's such a great question. Well, fortunately, they haven't stopped them doing it. So, and I would hope that they're very, very grateful. And what I think I don't know is the answer. I think they are pleased that it happens. And actually, they do coordinate from time to time because they will provide equipment or a van that will come and pick up all the rubbish and so on that they've collected. So they do collaborate, and so the things can get bigger and bigger. And so there is a good collaboration in the community. What we like to see with Retake Rome is that can, and they are doing this actually, that it can actually be replicated in other cities around Italy. And so other initiatives are starting to emerge, I believe, in Milan and in Bologna and places like that are learning from Retake Rome. And then you see we have another practical initiative in the World Upshift Movement that's come forward called, which is to do with reusing plastic and loving plastic in a way, seeing plastic as a resource. So they collect waste plastic and they turn it into houses and all kinds of other objects and so on. And then you've got an initiative in London called The Big Issue, which is homeless people creating their own. Right, so in the Upshift Movement, we're trying to bring these three organizations together now in the World Upshift Forum. Because what we're thinking is, well, maybe some of this plastic that the young people are collecting on Saturday morning could be used by the reuse plastic organization, which is based in the Netherlands but works all over the world, to create objects or structures. Actually, we have the idea of creating like a little hut by the side of the road where you could perhaps then sell compost or plants and so on. So instead of people driving to an out-of-town supermarket, they could buy their compost there. But you see, what's happening here is what I was talking about, how this is just emerging, these different organizations, what they have in common, the Big Issue and the Plastics Organization and Retake Rome, is that this is coming from the heart. This is being done with love. And sometimes people say to you, was that a nice meal that somebody cooked for you? You might remember how your mum's cooking or whatever it is, your dad's cooking. I love cooking for my children or whoever it is. But if you cook something for somebody and you make it with love, it's going to taste better. Whatever you cook, and it's the same thing here. If you pick up plastic with love, if you clean off graffiti with love, it's going to have a different result. And the result it's going to have is that energy that I was talking about, that vibration is going to go out into the community, and you get a ha-ha moment where people realize, oh, actually, it does matter that we're human beings. It does matter that we're people of goodwill. And there is something that I, as a simple human being or citizen, can do, especially if we connect with others. And that's what we're trying to catalyse in the World Upshift Movement.
We're going to take a short break now, Roger. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is award-winning European civil rights activist and former Member of Parliament and co-founder of the World Upshift Movement and Forum, Roger Casale. We'll be back in a few moments with more from Roger on the Upshift Movement. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Om Times TV.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of Om Times' flagship radio show, What Is Going On? And as an author, editor and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees and no BS. Just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Everything that we do, we can do in a contemplative manner. Through the art of contemplation, you can use the gene keys in a really powerful way. Gene keys is basically the code book of life. In the gene keys, the book is made up of these three levels: shadows, gifts, and siddhis. And the journey is through those three levels, kind of unpicking of the shadow states, the releasing of the gifts, and then the embodying of this higher consciousness called the siddhi. And the siddhis are very exalted words. And it's not like we kind of suddenly are all these exalted Christ-like beings, but we have flashes and illuminations along the journey. And the more we get stuck into the journey, the more illumination comes to us, because the more we're releasing the light from in these codes inside our DNA. So all those revelations are inside us. So the contemplative way is the inner way.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Roger Casale, I have to tell you a little story because it relates to what you said before. And being British, you will understand this. In my newsfeed a few days ago, a couple were fed up with all of the rubbish that was being strewn around the street near where they lived. So they picked it all up, they put it in black bin bags, and they put it out for the dustman to come. And they got sued by their council for moving rubbish around. Now, that is a ridiculous thing to happen. Obviously, those people are prime to come to you and to learn how they can, make this something that everybody could do in their own area, and the councils wouldn't be able to even complain about it if everybody's doing it.
Yeah. It's such an interesting story. It's a great story, and it really makes a point for me about what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, at the top of this hour, when we were talking about these different worlds, and I was talking about the world that I knew. Obviously, I had, as an MP, a lot to do with councils. And one of the other lessons I learned is how important communication is, and how it is important is to build relationships, to listen to people, try to listen without judgment if possible, understand where people are coming from, because we tend to polarize very quickly, don't we? You could grab hold of a story like that. I mean, I don't know the details. You told me, shared it with me. There's always two sides to a story. It's not difficult to imagine what the other side of that story is, but it must exist. I'd certainly be curious to know it. And I think what one needs to do is find a way to hold a space where people can talk to each other. The problem with something like that is that then people just, they stop doing it, they get fed up, it turns into a negative thing rather than something that could be really positive for everybody in the community. So I think a big part of our work in the Upshift movement is really going to be thinking about how we can hold the space for conversation, so people understand what it is that, see that potential of the love that couple that were picking the rubbish up, that potential, and the importance of mobilizing that. And the example I often talk about in the context of the Upshift movement is meditation, because more and more people are meditating or practicing perhaps mindfulness, but meditation, one kind or another, or yoga. Now, this seems to be really growing and growing. Now, some people will come to me and say, from outside the Upshift movement, people from my old one, they'll say, well, Roger, you're just trying to get us to meditate. So I said, well, not really. I said, I do a little bit of meditation. I'm learning something about it. But, what I like to do is just go for a nice walk in nature. And they go, oh, yeah, I like doing that too. And that just kind of centers me again and just puts me in touch with myself. And some people meditate. But what I would say to somebody like that is that, I think it's not a question of persuading you to meditate yourself. I just want you to realize that millions and millions more people are meditating now than they were before. I mean, we talked about my time in politics. I think it's something like nearly 300 members of the House of Commons and the House of Lords practice mindfulness. That's a very large number. If you go onto the National Health Service website, which I did, what it says is this about meditation. A lot of people say that meditation helps them to feel less stressed, less anxious, helps them with their life and so on. And you might be interested in trying this. It doesn't say go and meditate. It doesn't say that, actually, a lot of people think there is a scientific basis to this, but that's not the point. It signposts this. It says you might be interested and curious to do this. And so we need to be much more open-minded, and we need to bridge between areas that perhaps where, have not been so exposed to kind of public scrutiny and the public conversation. But we need a different kind of scrutiny and a different kind of conversation, one that comes with an open mind and an open heart and sees some good in this. Because actually, we get to the point where I could say to lawmakers and public policy makers, wouldn't it, I'm not trying to make you meditate, but what do you think the public health outcome is of millions and millions more people meditating? And you see, what's going to do is reduce the incidence of mental health, probably, significantly. And therefore, it's going to reduce the cost on the public budget, and therefore the burden on people's taxes and so on. So, there's a lot of good in this, but it's a question of how we unpack this and tell the story. And I hope that what we're building with the World Upshift Forum, and I particularly want to mention Lauren Lamore in Best Boston, who's been absolutely fantastic, helping us so much with all of this, and who's also introducing us to all kinds of beautiful initiatives like Safe Conversations, for example, safeconversationsdo.com, which actually started out as marriage counselling, but it's much more powerful than that. And about how do we have, we've been talking about how we find that power within, the power of love, how we connect. And the third thing I would say is, how do we communicate with each other in a way that is not going to end up with the story you just told me, but rather the reverse?
Yeah, I mean, I've long believed every day people are sitting in coffee shops, little groups of friends, putting the worlds to right, and saying, oh, well, if the local council would do this, or if the government would do that. And all of these great ideas that people have go nowhere. They just stay in that little circle and they feel helpless because nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
But, we've also, all over the world, we've got organisations like PTAs and, My Village, for example. In My Village, people could have an Upshift meeting every month and talk about what ideas could we share that, would further something in this village and then beyond this village. I mean, it's not difficult to sow the seeds and then have it just, proliferate all over the place, because these are things that need to be done.
Yes, I love the idea of a village meeting. We sometimes talk about town hall meetings and so on, don't we, where politicians come along and they have they speak, the people who are most articulate in the community speak up, and then there's a bit of a, goes backwards and forwards, and that has its place. But what you're talking about is something very different. It's a bit more like a discussion in a more democratic family, where you could actually a village is a lovely image for it. I actually live in a village in Italy, and I've studied in several universities, but the most important lessons I've ever learned in life in this village and from the village, really, truly, I mean, the really deep things that I've learned about what's important, and you want it to be an inclusive conversation, a safe conversation, because everybody has something to offer. And so I think there's a question about how you organize that so that people feel they relax and they feel that they can actually open up and they're not going to be judged or have their idea beaten down or whatever, but that actually everybody has a contribution to make. And then I think the other challenge is that they want to see something that actually makes a difference, that actually something happens next, so they don't just come along and have their say, but something else happens. And all of that is about organization. So we're just at the start of this, and we obviously can't organize all that ourselves, so we'd be dependent on organizations working with us. But what we could do, if somebody in that village wanted to do something like that, I'm sure we could put them in touch with an organization in the network of World Upshift Movement is doing this kind of work, and that could give some ideas and tips and perhaps some help so they could do it. So we can't come in and say, oh, don't worry, we're here. Now, that's not what World Upshift is about. It's about joining the dots and bringing people together, elevating this beautiful work, like the work you've just been talking about, signposting it, watering the garden, planting the seeds, putting people in touch with each other. And so it works if the organizations and individuals coming towards us have that approach themselves. If they're just coming to us and saying, well, what's in it for me? And then they're probably talking to the wrong organization. But if they come and say, I want to give this, and this is my idea, and how can you help? Then they're talking to the right organization.
Do you see the forum also as a kind of repository? I mean, I'm thinking about some of those articles. One thing that really intrigued me was the Peace on Earth game and the Peace on Earth zones. That. And, presumably people could come and say, here's what we're doing. And others could then go, ooh, that's a good idea. Maybe we should take that up.
Absolutely. So the Peace on Earth game is David Gershon, who's based in New York. He actually was the one who had the torch for peace in the 1980s, that did the circuit of the world, and this is his latest thing. And yes, you can find out about it through our website, but it's his organization, their organization, and so we just point you their way, and you can find them, hopefully stumble across them. You can find them directly, or you can find them indirectly through us. And what I just gives me the opportunity to say that the way we're working with David is we try not to do too many things ourselves, but we have to do a few things. Because as I was saying, what's really beautiful about World Upshift Movement is it's not a thing. It's a message, it's a vibration that people share and resonate, and we can be a reference point. We can be a lighthouse where people can come together. And so we use that image of the lighthouse to come together 4 times a year for the equinoxes and the solstices, and we have a meditation for peace. And this is how we got in touch with David Gershon and the Peace Games, because he was one of the contributors to our equinox meditation earlier in the year. We don't say spring or winter or summer, I think, because it's summer in the northern hemisphere, winter in the southern hemisphere. So just equinox, and we just ask people to come together and meditate for peace. Hold the still vibration of peace in their hearts, and take that out into their communities. It's not really a show, like you go to things where there's like we're doing now, where you're presenting me. Thank you very much. It's not that. It's really a space for people watching at home to connect with themselves. So we have periods of silence, or we have some chanting. We actually focus it. We do it from the Temple of Light at the Ananda community, as their headquarters in Europe in Assisi. But then we bring people in from elsewhere too. And so that is a way in which people can connect to us as part of this movement. And they would have found David there, and they might find David again the next time or the time after that. And the other thing we do, so that's the lighthouse. We talk about the harbour, where people can take the next step, join as a member. We organise events for them where they can meet each other. But we also do sort of fireside chats, a little bit like you're doing with me now, where we present individuals and their work to try and elevate that. And then we also grow the World Upshift Movement in that way, because then that person will say, look, I had a conversation with Upshift, and it's not about us. It's not about our organization. It's about what we can do together. So everything that is relational from that point of view. So the fireside chats, the online forums, the equinox and solstice meditations, and finally the annual conference in Lerici, Italy, near La Spezia. These are really the activities where people can engage with us directly. And we, of course, be delighted if your viewers would like to sign up and get involved in that on the website, worldupshift.org. But actually, my message to your audience is, it doesn't matter about coming to us. What matters is that you connect with something that is meaningful for you, where you feel that you can find expression for what you've got with you in yourself. And I know what that is. It's love, and it's deep connection with humanity. And I just want to say to you, it does matter. And I hope you have the opportunity to take that forward.
You said something when you and I had a chat off air, that now you look at things, is it an upshift or is it a downshift? And I think that that is an incredibly useful way of looking at things in life. You know, it's a good thing to nurture, is that everything that, you know, happens, is this an upshift or is it a downshift? And it's a really good yardstick for us, you know, to say, well, is this for me or is it not for me? Is this going to help people? Is it not going to help people?
It's such a great question. Are we going up or down? So I think I would probably need to call a friend at this point, and the friend I would call would be Ervin Laszlo. And I would anticipate his answer, which I think is essentially, you can't separate the two out, because there is clearly, I think we're all experiencing it, a downshift. It's not just about climate or the mental health crisis or cost of living. It's also just thinking about how we communicate with each other, how we talk to each other, the erosion of the center, pushing things out to the extremes of polarization, and all the consequences of the things that are happening. And so, we were at an event held by Jarvis Smith, another key person in the Upshift movement, who has a wonderful organization which is My Green Pod, which is helping people who want to live a more ethical lifestyle. It's a magazine, but also retail outlet with organic projects. Wonderful. And he has annual awards where he celebrates, and he very kindly gave an award to Upshift this year. Celebrates the wonderful work that people are doing for sustainability and for the climate. But in his speech at the beginning, he said, we've been doing this for 14 years, and I have to say to you, things are getting, despite everything we're doing, things are getting worse, not better. So I think we can see for ourselves where the downshift is. But what Ervin would say, and that's why I said we call it, is that it's out of that downshift, out of that crisis, that growth and opportunity in the upshift can come. And so we have a choice as human beings. Are we just going to let it go, slide down the slippery slope, getting worse and worse? Or are we going to say, actually, we have a choice. We can upshift. We can do something ourselves. And we're not talking about miracle cures. We're not talking about, conversion on the road to Damascus. We're not saying, oh, now I need to be like Ervin Laszlo. No, we're just talking about do the very simple things that actually you quite like to do, wouldn't you? And you've already thought of, haven't you? And just go ahead and do it, please, because it really matters. And actually, I think it is transformational. If we can mobilize people of goodwill with the love that they have in their heart and the vision and the imagination and the creativity that makes us human, the question is how to do that. I don't have the answer to that. The Upshift Forum doesn't have the answer to that. But there are a lot of individuals and organizations coming together through the World Upshift Movement, responding to that resonance, who, oh boy, do they seem to have an answer to that in the particular context where they are. Doesn't mean to say that it's universal and you can apply it everywhere. But if we can bring these organizations and individuals together and also have a broader conversation with public policy makers, people in business, academia, that's really what we want to do. We can get what Lauren talked about, this exponential collaboration. We can get something cascading outwards where people say, okay, I don't use the word spiritual, but I can see that meditation has a really positive outcome on public health outcomes. How can we enhance that? And that's what we're about in the Upshift Movement, trying to get those conversations, trying to get that upshift going. And it'll come out of the downshift. So the two things go together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to exercise their imaginations and stretch their boundaries where they think that they couldn't possibly do something. Now they have an opportunity to put anything into action, and just see what happens to it and learn from what comes out of that.
Yes, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged by any kind of setback. This is what we believe in the Upshift Movement. We believe that this is where the change needs to come from. And we, again, I said again, we're not trying to tell people what to do or ask people what to do. We're simply putting that message out there that the world needs love. and that love is a powerful, if we can spread hate in the world, it must be possible to spread love.
Yes.
And love is powerful. It makes a difference. We know that about our own lives. We know that about transformation in our own lives. We can mobilize love for society as a whole. And the question is how to do that. As I say, I don't know. But I do know people who are doing some amazing work that seem to have an answer for that in the context that they're working in. And we can elevate that, we can signpost it, we can learn from it, we can put people together. And that's what we're trying to do, joining up the dots and holding those safe spaces for conversations and cascading this energy that is the upshift movement, this vibration, this resonance outwards to catalyze an upshift in humanity.
Well, you've given us 3 really interesting examples of all the things that you've seen emerge from this. Is there one standout that really surprised you with its ingenuity or, originality or something?
Yes, well, there are several things. It's hard it is hard to pick one. It's a great question. Give me a moment just to kind of reflect on that. I think the retake one is a standout example because it is so practical and it's so easy to talk about and to show what we actually mean. I have to say, though, that some of the most moving things, I hope some of your viewers will have a chance to have a look at some of the interviews on our website. There's somebody called Louise Mara in New Zealand, Ree Roop, and also Michael Kearney in California. People, and Sarah McCrum in Australia, learning to love money, which sounds an odd thing to say. And Michael Kearney is working with people who are in the hospice movement, who are close to the end of their lives, and finding a way to bring love and connection into that end of life situation for people, so that they can, when they do pass away healed. And that is about what he sometimes says is, if you think of the pain as salt, piece of salt, and you put it on your tongue, it's going to be very salty. But if you put, or in a glass of water, the water's going to be very salty. But if you put the salt in the ocean or in a lake, it's not going to be so salty. And so that's part, have a look at Michael Kearney's interview. But I think that there's some great themes of today that are the Conscious Food Alliance as well, that is putting, human consciousness at the center of how we produce, consume, and deal with waste food systems and so on. So much food goes to waste, doesn't it? And so many people are hungry. But, and lots of people are concerned about that, and rightly so. But what does a different food system, the UN actually are backing this, and we work with them in the Upshift Movement, the Conscious Food Alliance, that puts human consciousness and human awareness at the center of our food system. That's Upshift. It's a kind of renaissance, and it's a kind of, it's starting from the human spirit and seeing how far you can go in different areas. But the retake one is a standout example. But I mentioned some other areas there. Also Justina Mutale from our board, who's working on girls' education in Africa. Master Shah, who's investing in reforestation projects and wells in villages in Africa. Because if you have water well, you have water, but it also means the girls don't have to go, because it's the girls that do it, go and have to walk miles every day to get the water, and so they can go to school. And so if they go to school, that creates a different situation for everybody in the community, and that is Upshift. So I think what these different things have in common is that they come from the heart, they're thought through, they're practical projects, but they have an impact not just on the people who the project is helping, but on the community as a whole. And they help us to upshift rather than downshift. And that can only come from a place of love.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to have to end, but it is the perfect ending. Roger Casale, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sandie, and thank you to your audience.
You can learn more about the Upshift Movement and Forum at worldupshift.org. And you can also read Ervin Laszlo's book, The Great Upshift, Humanity's Come in Advance Toward Peace and Harmony on the Planet. That's it for this week. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. I'll be back with another edition of What is Going On at the same time next week. Till then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to Roger Casale.